Hello and welcome to Loredive, where we look into the lore of all of our favorite games. Today we're going right back into Dead by Daylight, a 1 vs 4 survival game, this time going into the final group of survivors that have been released at this time. These survivors include Kate Denson, Adam Francis, Jeffrey Johansen, and Jane Romero. Kate Denson, the hopeful songbird. One of Kate Denson's earliest memories was standing in front of her family, singing a song that she had learned that morning at school, and watching smiles spread across their faces. Seeing how something as simple as a song could make people so happy was the moment that she knew what she wanted to do with her life. She practiced, learned the guitar as soon as she was big enough to reach over it, and was performing in front of crowds by the time she was 8 years old. Her mother did everything that she could to fulfill Kate's dreams, taking her all over their home state of Pennsylvania, then across the South, and to even Nashville itself. Kate won folk music competitions and talent shows whenever she participated, but for her to win, others had to lose, and that wasn't in her nature. She only wanted an outlet, a way to touch people's lives, to make them forget the worries of the world and just enjoy themselves, if only for a while. With age came a newfound freedom. She bought a battered old Chevy truck and was able to travel around by herself, meeting fans and making new friends wherever she stopped. Hers wasn't a story of rock excess though, just the road, her guitar, and maybe a good bourbon at the end of the day. From sun-baked festivals to dark and cozy bars, people flocked to hear her voice and her self-penned songs of friendship, family, love, and home. These sentiments weren't just lip service. She made sure to return home as often as she could, to help out her community and entertain the local children with her tales of the wider world. She saw it as a way of giving back, of supporting others in the same way she had been. It was also home where she found most of her inspiration. She had always loved to take long walks in the woods around her town, exploring off the beaten track, finding a quiet spot to play and write her songs. She had a favorite location that she returned to time and time again, a natural hollow encircled by trees that looked almost as if it had been blasted out of the rocks thousands of years ago. Here she felt a strong connection with nature and to the earth itself. She let her mind be enveloped by the forest as it rewarded her with constant inspiration. She picked up her guitar and played, her fingers dancing across the fretboard. The music that she made this time, though, was unlike her usual uplifting tunes, being much more melancholy, even dark. Still, something compelled her to continue, to finish the song. The leaves vibrated in unison with the guitar strings, and the boughs of the trees lengthened. Spider-like legs descended from the canopy above, grasping for her. Regaining her senses, she grabbed a rock and tried to beat them back, but their skin was hard as iron, and the rock simply bounced off and skittered away. The legs coiled like tendrils around her limbs and lifted her towards the darkness overhead, and Kate caught a glimpse of something otherworldly, something that she wasn't supposed to see. Fog rolled across the clearing, obscuring both Kate and the creature of nightmares that drew her up towards itself. When the fog cleared, there was no sign of any struggle or life, just an acoustic guitar, the scratch plate engraved with flowers, as well as the initials KD inlaid in mother of pearl. Despite her bright and cheerful attitude, Kate isn't one to give up without a fight. If anyone thinks that this buxom singer is going to go down easily, they've got another thing coming. Kate's first perk is Dance With Me. Kate is a master of the dance floor and has no problem outmaneuvering the clumsy meanderings of the killers that pursue her. Whenever performing a fast vault or jumping out of a locker, Kate will leave no scratch marks for up to 3 seconds. After using this perk, Dance With Me will go on cooldown for a short duration. Kate's second perk is Windows of Opportunity. Kate is able to use her ability to scope out opportunities in her music career in a very different way. With Windows of Opportunity, Kate will be able to see the auras of all pallets and windows within 20 meters of her. If she vaults a window or drops a pallet, the perk will go on cooldown for a short duration. Kate's final perk is Boil Over. Kate is not all rainbows and sunshine. If you make her angry, her warm smile can strike you like a bolt of lightning instead. With boil over, Kate puts up more of a struggle when the killer tries to pick her up, increasing the effects of her struggle when she's being carried by the killer. Along with this, she will also obscure the killer's ability to see hook auras within a short radius of them. Despite Kate's predicament, she's known to be an upbeat and joyous survivor who brings light and warmth into the entity's dark dominion. Whenever other survivors are about to lose hope, Kate is there to bring sunlight back into their life with her bright smile and warm demeanor. Adam Francis, the resourceful teacher. Adam was born in Rollington Town in Kingston, Jamaica. His father died in a car accident when he was 2, and his uncle took him in. His uncle was a strict but fair man who raised him to value education. At Kingston College, Adam discovered his father's published works, which triggered his passion for literature. His campus, however, was known for its focus in athletics. As a shy teenager with his nose stuck in books, he was the perfect prey for bullies. What he lacked in sports, though, he made up in grit. And using this, he learned to defend himself in the thick of it. It's during his years in college that he started to imagine his life elsewhere. While his close friends orbited the music industry, he followed a surer path. His grades granted him admission into higher education, and there was a demand for teachers abroad. After graduating university, he taught extra classes to afford applying fees overseas. He had a steady diet of long commutes, grading piles, nightly lesson plans, and early classes. After a year, he managed to apply for a position abroad. His first plane ride took him to southern Japan for a new start. There, his life in Kagoshima was hectic. There was little time to do everything he took for granted back home. His Japanese was elementary at best, which slowed him down. Buying groceries took hours, long commutes had to be planned, and his lessons relied on Japanese notions, which he had to learn. But after a few months, he found his rhythm. He reflected on it one morning while riding the train to work. He no longer had to study the kanji characters filling the map. His language skills had improved, he felt connected to his students, and he treated himself to luxurious restaurants on weekends. He even had his first ever vacation planned. Within seconds, though, Adam's world was brought to a halt. Rails hissed, bags came pouring down, and the floor trembled before the hit. Adam crashed forward as the train flipped upside down. He landed on a window pane as an unhinged door came flying at a passenger. He rolled over so that the door would hit him instead of the girl. He shut his eyes as he braced for impact, but nothing happened. He squinted one eye open and saw nothing but darkness. A heavy fog had taken over the train. Ice seemed to flow through his body, reaching his lips first, then the tip of his fingers, before spreading to his legs. No one truly knows what happened to Adam Francis. The school teachers imagined the worst when they watched the train derailment on the news and saw he was missing. Their fears seemed to be confirmed when Adam's bag was recovered from the crash site, but his body was never found. To this day, his uncle believes that Adam took off after the train crash, and is alive still, somewhere out there. Adam's knowledge and his grit and determination when dealing with bullies gives him a unique perspective on the entity's game. While he's not the strongest survivor out there, his ability to work around certain obstacles may give him all the ability that he needs to save his and other survivors' throats. Adam's first perk is diversion. Sometimes all you need to do is make someone see what they want to see. With diversion, after Adam has been within the killer's terror radius for a period of time, he'll gain the ability to throw stones while crouched. Throwing a stone will create a notification for the killer wherever the stone lands. After the stone has been thrown, Adam will have to spend time within the killer's terror radius again before he will be able to throw another. Adam's second perk is deliverance. Despite what some people say, it is rarely the meek who make it into the pages of history. After having saved another survivor from the hook, deliverance becomes active. With deliverance, if Adam is hooked, he will have a 100% chance to unhook himself from an escape attempt. The cost of this, however, is that he will be stuck in the broken status for a short duration. Adam's final perk is autodidact. Adam starts off the trial with a negative 25% progression penalty for any skill checks he makes when healing survivors. However, for every successful skill check he gets a token up to a cap. For each token that he has in Autodidact, he will gain a plus 15% bonus to progression speeds when healing survivors. Autodidact, however, will not work if the player has another perk that also affects healing progression, or if he is using a medkit. Though he was the teacher when living in Japan, he must learn from the other survivors, as well as teach them his ways, if they are going to escape the entity's possession alive. Jeffrey Johansen, the Quiet Artist. Jeff Johansen was born and raised in Ormond, Alberta. He grew up as a quiet, only child with an aversion for large crowds. During high school, his anxious nature was mislabeled as shyness, which he covered up with a tough and stoic persona that intimidated bullies and teachers alike. At home, he discovered he had an interest in heavy metal and started a vinyl collection. The evocative symbolism on the covers inspired him to make art of his own, which helped him cope with his parents' constant fighting. To escape his parents' increasingly reoccurring blow-ups, Jeff started working at a video store. Few customers passed by, so he had a lot of free time to draw. A late-night regular named Frank noticed his sketches and asked him to do some artwork for his gang at an abandoned lodge up in Mount Ormond. Jeff accepted the challenge and painted a large mural depicting the Legion. He was given a $50 bill and a 12-pack for his hard work. It was his first paid commission and a milestone to be proud of. After his parents' inevitable divorce, Jeff was forced to move in with his mother in Winkler, Manitoba, which was miles from his home and his dad. In Winkler, Jeff was more isolated than ever, except for art and music. His solace came shortly after graduating high school when he started working at a local bar with live music performances. He found a roadie gig shortly thereafter, leaving Winkler behind. A few years later, Jeff got injured after getting involved in a fight during a concert. He was told he could lose part of his eyesight, so his doctor asked him to stay in town in order to monitor him. It was a difficult time where Jeff had to reassess his life choices. He decided to go back to school, art school. His eyesight slowly returned, but he had to be careful. He took a few courses, experimenting with a wide range of mediums, but ultimately choosing oil painting and digital art, the latter of which offered him paid internships. He took up a desk job and found his calling in designing labels for microbreweries. He led a quiet, simple life. He brewed beer, took in a rescue dog, designed tattoos, and freelanced album covers for bands he liked. All until one morning when he got a phone call from Ormond saying that his father had passed, leaving a few things to sort out. Jeff drove all the way back out to Ormond. He felt a pang of nostalgia when he reached his late father's house. Inside there was an old guitar case sitting against the wall. In it was a black vintage model with a sticky note that said, "For my boy." He stayed in town longer than he planned to, reminiscing about his childhood, and driving by his former high school, he remembered the mural he painted up on Mount Ormond. He picked up a 12-pack and headed for the lodge. After weeks of not hearing back from Jeff, his colleagues assumed that grief had gotten the better of him. His neighbor had tired of sitting his dog, which became more agitated as days went by. The dog, unfortunately, became a stray again, and those who ran across it seemed to think that it was confused, all while it tried to seek the familiar trail of Jeff's malty scent. Not even Jeff truly knows what happened to him after he went up to Mount Ormond, but at this particular moment, it doesn't really much matter. He has no interest in being fodder for the entity or the killers that now pursue him. Jeff's first perk is Breakdown. Jeff tries to do what he can in order to prevent himself from repeating bad situations. Whenever he is unhooked or unhooks himself, the hook he is on breaks, and the killer's aura will be shown to him for a short duration. Jeff's second perk is Aftercare. Despite Jeff's solitary nature, he is a caring individual and quickly becomes attached to the survivors around him. Whenever he is rescued from the hook, or rescues another survivor from the hook, he will be able to see the aura of that survivor from that point forward. If he is hooked again, however, any survivor's auras that he had gained will be lost. Jeff's final perk is Distortion. Jeff knows how to blend in with the crowd when he doesn't wish to be noticed. With distortion, Jeff will start the match with 3 tokens. Whenever Jeff's aura would be shown to the killer, instead, a token will be consumed. For a short period after, his aura and scratch marks will not be visible to the killer. A token in distortion will not be consumed, however, if Jeff is in the dying state or if he is affected by a trap. Jeff does not enjoy the situation that he's in. He's an artist, not a snack. Jeff's stoic personality is going to make sure that he survives, no matter what the entity throws his way. Jane Romero, the influential celebrity. Jane Romero was the daughter of famous actress Loretta Lawrence, of whom she had no memory. Her parents had separated when she was still a baby, mainly since her mother was often away filming. Jane was raised by her father, a struggling visual artist, and due to this, she grew up torn between resenting her mother's absence from her life, as well as admiring her presence on screen. As a teenager, Jane secretly wished to emulate her mother's talents. She would direct and perform in plays, audition for TV commercials, and help her father in his studio. During her senior year, she entered a national oratory contest and won first prize. Her performance attracted the attention of a radio station that contacted her for an interview. During the live show, her natural charm and repartee impressed the staff, who offered her a part-time job at the station. After graduating a college in communication, she quit her job at the station to work for a trendy variety show. But her frank delivery and ad-libs were not appreciated by the show's executives, who fired her after 5 months. Desperate for another opportunity, Jane pitched a show at the radio station she used to work at, her proposal being too risky. 4 months later, she received a phone call from a producer who had seen reruns of the show. He was looking for a co-host to spark up the failing show Quick Talk. Live television meant long hours, a low salary, and no stability. But it also offered a platform to broadcast her views. She disputed the crude, inflammatory tone of Quick Talk and pushed for relatable coverage of personal issues. Her honest delivery resonated with her audience, and within weeks, the show's viewership was steadily growing. After 2 years, she launched a full-hour segment called The Jane Romero Show, which was broadcast nationally and covered tabooed topics, including her personal struggle with abandonment. Her show broke records, and her initials, JR, became synonymous with projects ranging from beauty creams to fashion accessories. But Jane needed more. She wanted others to follow in her footsteps. She published a memoir that covered her childhood with an absent mother. Her book was an instant bestseller, but was reviewed harshly. Critics called it a serving of sad anecdotes seasoned with bland, generic self-help tips. Jane took the criticism to heart, since, despite her success, a voice in the back of her mind was starting to doubt her achievements. Her success also generated into an increasingly demanding schedule, with a growing pressure to entertain constantly. She canned an episode and instead launched a 2-hour-long special on divorce. Her stress peaked when she learned that her mother had agreed to star in her show. Jane put on a brave face and began the show. Most of it went off without a hitch, but her mother walked on the set, smiling warmly at the audience, and Jane's stomach lurched unpleasantly. She was consumed by a violent envy that had been festering, yet she carried on with a strained smile, until Loretta interrupted her, saying that they weren't actually related. The interview went haywire after that. After the show, Jane was driving to her father's house in New Jersey. She needed to talk things over with him, as she had not been feeling like herself lately. She turned to a freeway along the coast to avoid major congestion and popped some painkillers to numb the throbbing pain in her temples, which had been nagging her all day. She started to relax and turned on the radio. Classical music was playing and the drive was slow. Black ice covered the highway, which was packed with cars on their way back home. Night fell. A darkness began to blur the corners of her vision and turn the headlights into swirls of red. Jane blinked to sharpen their outlines, but each time she closed her eyes, her eyelids became heavier and heavier until they remained shut for a moment too long. The following morning, authorities were fishing Jane's car out from the water. Despite leading a meticulous search for weeks, they were unable to retrieve her body. The airing and production of the Jane Romero show was suspended until after her funeral, which both her father and mother attended. As the public grieved for Jane, there was a surge of orders for JR products, and all her episodes were re-released a month later, with an opening credit that wished her eternal peace. Obviously, eternal peace is the last thing on Jane's mind at this point. Despite her celebrity status, Jane has no trouble getting into the thick of it with the other survivors. She's also one to refuse giving up. After everything that has happened, she'll be damned if she's going to let anyone get in her way now. Jane's first perk is solidarity. Jane knows how to find a common ground between herself and others, and finds that sharing these experiences can help both parties heal. With solidarity, if Jane is injured and heals another survivor without using a medkit, she will also heal herself for a percentage of what she heals the other survivor. Jane's second perk is poised. Jane is extremely confident under pressure. With poised, after a generator is completed, whether it was Jane who completed it or not, she will leave no scratch marks for up to 10 seconds. Jane's final perk is head on. Jane is strong-willed, and when she's made up her mind, no one better be standing in her way. After being in a locker for 3 seconds, head on activates. Performing a rushed action out of a locker while head-on is active will stun a killer for up to 3 seconds if they are standing within range. Jane will suffer from exhaustion for a short duration. Jane is not a fool to think that the procedural is anything like the entertainment industry that she is used to. This, however, doesn't mean that she won't understand how to handle the circumstances that she's in. Her level temperament will undoubtedly help her keep her head on her shoulders. At least, hopefully, it will. That's it for this episode of Loredive. For those of you who tend to leave at this point of the video, I do have something at the end that you may want to view. The next video for Dead by Daylight will be the final set of killers, and after that, we'll be done with Dead by Daylight until the next chapter. The next major series I'll be covering will be Resident Evil, but I also want to do some smaller games in the meantime. So at the end of this video, I have a preview for a few smaller titles that I would like to do lore for. And then later on today, I'll have a poll for everyone, so please let me know which title you would like to see. And with that, as always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.